Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
Oh, that's right. We got another show coming right at you guys, straight to the noggin, straight to the dome. I'm sure I'll probably lagging again right now because I just went and shared my tweet everywhere, share a live show everywhere. So yeah, you guys probably have a lagged out me right now that is still actually looking at the screen, not talking. So this is great. I'm going to turn off my camera for a second, and we're going to keep talking. So anyways, guys, what's going on? Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. We've got another show for you for waiver wires, right? We've got Nate out there killing it in the game. We've got Chef out there killing the game. So what's going on, guys? Welcome in, Nate. What's going on with you, man? How you doing?
Doing great, man. Another Tuesday. I love doing the show. I always look forward to it.
Dude, absolutely. It's definitely one of my favorite shows to do. You know, it's the show that gets your week kicked off, man. It gets you into this upcoming Week 14 matchups, although we're not even done with Week 13 yet, so I don't even know why I'm even talking about it. Like, you know, it's kind of just all over the place. I think I'm done lagging now. Am I good? I'm done lagging. I'm good. Cool.
You're
all
back.
Right. I'm back. I had to exit out of Twitter. The thing just takes up a ton of space. And then, of course, we have the FF_Chef. What's going on, Chef? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing today?
Oh, dude. Doing so well, my friend. So well. So real quick, before we get this episode started off, let everybody know where to find you guys. Nate, you can start out.
At JanateJack 2017 on Twitter, at IBT_media is where all my content is there, and at joinourcircle_, and inbetweenmedia.com.
Love it. All right. What about you, Chef? Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at FF_Chef on Twitter. Follow me at the Tilt is Real Fantasy Football Podcast at TIR_pod. And I write for Ball Blast Football. You can check out some of my articles over there, and soon to come at Fantasy Intervention. We're going to be doing some great stuff over there at joinourcircle_.
It's all taking off, baby. It's all taking off. It's getting up there. Now, normally this is not a question-based show. However, with us still having a game tonight, you know, I figured we could actually answer a couple of these questions here and there. We're not going to load up this docket. I'm not going to spend all night talking about it, you know, but I do want to get a few of these questions in because we got Facebook user over there, right, who's up 14 points, and his opponent has Cooper, Tucker, and Baltimore defense. Half-point PPR. How boned is he? How boned is he, guys? Is he pretty boned in this one?
Yeah. He might not make it out of that one.
I think that the Baltimore D is probably going to end up putting up that amount of points in one setting. Sorry to tell you, my friend. All right, so we do have this waiver wire show, guys. This is where we're going to be, you know, exploring different possibilities, talking about, I guess, not what everybody wants to talk about, because everybody wants to try and front load all these different players that you should be picking up off waiver wires every single week. And guess what? We know. We get it because we've been there, right? We've been there as to where, hey, we think there's a new hot player out. We got to go ahead and grab him. But the reality is you shouldn't be spending all of your fab on these guys every single week. So James actually does this little, I guess, thing for the Tilt is Real, right? He does this little graphic as to where it shows you who you should pick up and who you shouldn't. And Nate and I are here to either tear it down and talk complete shit about it, or to, you know, get his back and tell him, hey, that was actually a good pick for this one. So if you guys can see up on the screen, we have a whole entire slate up there of guys we should pick up. So we're going to discuss each and every one of those. What's up, Steffi? How you doing? Right?
I like that. They're going to mend your little wounds. Yeah.
I'll take it. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this one off. Let's kick off this waiver wire.
Let's do it.
And let's talk about the quarterback position first, because with the quarterbacks, right, I'm somebody that actually supports streaming quarterbacks. I didn't do it as much this year because I knew I was going to have 28 freaking fantasy teams. So I tried to draft a little bit higher on the quarterback scale, but typically I'm a guy, especially when it comes to playoffs, where I am streaming quarterbacks almost every single week. Like, that's what makes sense to me. I'm the guy that goes after the matchups. I'm the guy that goes after the passing volume, who's hot, who's not, defensive injuries. I'm the guy that tackles these waivers. So this is where I really want to dive into these waivers. And we're going to start it out with Phillip Rivers. Now, James, Go ahead and
Yeah.
tell us as to why you want to go Phillip Rivers with your first pick. And we're going to tell you whether we want to tear it down or build you up.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. 285 yards and 2 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. He gets the Raiders giving up the 24th most fantasy points to the quarterback, allowing 19.3 fantasy points per game. And the Colts should be able to open up the offense with the run game, allowing Rivers to utilize his full arsenal this week. And guess what? You can hold on to him so you don't have to waste any fab in week 15 when he goes up against the Texans, who just put up 19.2 fantasy points against this past week. So, yeah.
Yeah, revisiting this, it's a huge matchup advantage, 100%. And it should be an absolute smash play for the majority of us that are out there, streaming quarterbacks. However, Phillip Rivers isn't available in every single league. So it does make me a little bit nervous. We are going to dive into a few guys that might be a little bit deeper. But yeah, I mean, this is something as to where I couldn't agree more. And you also keep in mind, need to stash future quarterbacks in these leagues as well, because of the fact that he does have a couple harder matches. So, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But how are you feeling about Phillip Rivers, Nate?
I like him. I've got him. It is crazy to me that he's not rostered higher, I guess. I know a lot of people were low on him going into the season, but he's kind of proven, at his age and with his weapons, he's doing okay. And this time of year, man, if you're quarterback needy, he's a great grab if he's still around. I don't know why you wouldn't, honestly.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's something that I can actually, get behind 100%, which, hey, guess what? Chef and I don't always agree, No. We're always off on a little bit of a different page, but for this one, I'm 100% behind it. Up next on your quarterbacks, go ahead and read that off for us, and I'll go ahead and get this picture back up on the screen for you.
Well, the next one is Daniel Jones, and I know he's still questionable for week 14, but the optimistic coach speak from Joe Judge has me thinking he will start this week against the Cardinals. Cardinals are 21st in fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. They just let Jared Goff go over 350 yards in week 13. Utilizing his receivers like Shepard, who caught 7 of 8 targets for 64 yards in week 12, and Evan Ingram, like Goff utilized Higbee this past week. I think Daniel Jones can get it done against the Cardinals. If you're in a pinch, he is a more mid-range QB2, though.
Yeah.
Real quick, got another question before we actually dive into this one. Third and Short has asked, "Hi, I'm down by 4 with no remaining players. Should I claim it was rigged and claim collusion?" Which one?
That's collusion. I'm going
collusion 100%. Yeah, I'm on the same page. And whose birthday is it, by the way? Whose birthday? Is it Phillip Rivers' birthday? Oh, Daniel Jones' birthday? Whose birthday is it?
Oh, it must be Daniel Jones' birthday. If Steffi put that
Phillip
out,
Rivers' birthday.
definitely.
It's Phillip Rivers.
Oh,
Good.
it's Phillip Rivers. Oh,
he's older than me now.
That's awesome.
2 months.
That means we can still play, Nate. That means we can still play in the league. Yeah,
dude, I hear the Bengals need a quarterback.
Oh, God. I can't with you guys.
So do the Eagles.
All right, so let's see. Where do I have Daniel Jones? So this week, I'm actually fading Daniel Jones. Sorry, Steffi. I know you're in the chat. I've already talked about, why in the past. And honestly, he had a rushing upside. But dealing with that injury, I don't see that the rushing upside is there. If we take away his rushing production from just the 2 big games, we don't take away all the production. We just take away that rushing production that he had from those 2 big games. Not the entire season, just those 2 games. He would actually be quarterback 28 on the season, and he's only missed a game and a half so far. That's 1 spot behind Gardner Minshew, who, by the way, hasn't played since week 7. So this is something as to where I'm not getting behind Daniel Jones without that rushing upside. I just don't see that it's there. And guess what? He always does have the ability to run, but I don't think that they're going to let him do that. Arizona's defense, by the way, they've been very good up against teams that don't have offensive lines and that cannot run the ball or escape the pressure. They like to blitz. So when they get a guy caught behind the offensive line, which Daniel Jones very well could be this week, Bentley, if you don't chill out, sorry. If they don't this week, I think that we could be looking at some trouble with Daniel Jones. And I don't want to take that risk going into the playoffs when it comes to streaming quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And especially coming off an injury, if you take away that ability to run, you don't really have much with him. It's risky, especially in the playoffs. when there are other guys out there. I mean, if there's nobody else and it's either a zero or Daniel Jones, obviously you go Daniel Jones, but otherwise I wouldn't touch him either.
Yeah, that's something I swear that's going to be a major, major fade for me. Sorry, Steffi, and sorry, of course, the other Giants fans room, James.
Yeah, well, hey,
Great
there are
dynasty
some
stats,
other
though.
guys. There are some other guys, though, and I'll take it from here. Jared Goff, he's a stash, 47.8% ownership, has the Jets and the Seahawks in weeks 15 and 16. He may be a guy, if you're not looking for somebody this week, but need somebody in the next 2 weeks, I would consider.
I don't hate that. I'd like to see them get their run game figured out, like who's who. That
Right.
kind of scares me because there's just been no real consistency there. But I don't hate it. I mean, Goff looks like he's seeing ghosts sometimes, but he looked a little bit better last week. And with those 15 and 16 matchups, week 15 and 16 matchups, I don't hate it. Oh, dude, Bob wants to.
Bob wants a fight, man.
Bob is saying Colt McCoy over
Bob.
Daniel Jones.
Oh,
I don't know.
Bob.
I don't know. All right, so
Don't
real
do
quick,
it to me,
what's up with
Bob.
Tannehill? Why is Tannehill not, on this list? Is he just too widely owned? Munder
Yeah, I
Dipplin
believe
had asked.
so. Let me check for you real fast. Tannehill.
You're gonna check in the middle of a show. Come on, man.
Yeah,
We
man,
already
I
have this
don't-
set up.
Yeah, he's 66% owned in all
Yeah.
leagues. All right, and it was set up. The website was open. But yeah, no, he's way too widely owned in this.
Yeah,
for
but
this
obviously
list. This list
Tannehill could be an
is
option going to the
50%.
playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. If he's there, you go grab him. But yeah, this list is specifically 50% or under ownership.
Now, real quick, I do want to talk about stashing quarterbacks because at this time of year, if you're somebody that streams quarterbacks, you could be probably one of many people that actually made it into the playoffs that also streams quarterbacks because of the fact that we've had some rough weeks from Russell Wilson. Kyler Murray just let a bunch of people down. There have been actual starting quarterbacks where teams have been forced to, stream them over the past 2 weeks. So with that being said, keep an eye on the playoffs. Keep an eye on who you're in the playoffs with because you might actually want to stash a quarterback, which I never am a fan of keeping 2 quarterbacks in the roster, ever. But at this point, like Jared Goff, like you brought up, he has the Jets and the Seahawks going into week 15 and 16. That's a guy that I might want to stash to keep him away from my league mates and, as somebody that's a backup, for me moving forward as well. Now, let's go ahead and bring up Baker Mayfield, who you have on this list. Go ahead. Let's have you start out with it because I can't even get on board with this. I want you to explain.
He did not make the waiver wire hero sheet, Chase. Let's just be clear with that. But his ownership is only 20.5%. We saw a career day this past week from Baker Mayfield. And we've been waiting for a game like that to show his true skills. And I don't think he gets it done in the next 2 weeks with his matchups, but against the Jets in week 16, we don't know the outcome of the AFC North yet. And I think they might be battling it out a little bit down the stretch. And they may be pushing for a win in week 16 to get to secure that playoff spot.
Yeah, it's something that's where I'm not a fan in any way, shape, or form. Baker Mayfield, I don't want to take that risk. I mean, they're a run-heavy team, and obviously, you're going to have to sit there and rely on him passing the ball and getting big-time volume to an extent. I mean, he will always have these efficient games where he could hit the tight end for 3 different touchdowns. But this is something as to where I'm fading big time. Now, when it comes to Nate, what are you thinking with Baker Mayfield?
Well, I have an irrational love for Baker Mayfield. I don't know why. I keep waiting for him to explode, and I will always argue and defend him for maybe no reason at all. I see the skill there, and I think so. They're in line to make the playoffs. I mean, this is one of the best. This is the best season Cleveland's had in 15, 16 years, something like that. He has an opportunity to drive this team into the playoffs and be successful. And I think he's going to rise to the challenge. I think we're going to see more of what we saw last week, the rest of the season. And I'm willing to take a flyer on him, honestly. He seems to be building rapport with some of those younger guys. And he just looks more settled in that offense, and they're running the ball so well. It just opens up that passing game and play action. And they're going to have to throw the ball against Baltimore. You never know. I mean, is it risky? Yeah. Do I have an irrational love for him? Probably, but I do it. I love him on this list.
God, man, I hate it. And I called, by the way, I called DPJ last week. Just
You
saying.
did.
Very nice. Very nice.
Called DPJ. That was something that I just saw, I saw tremendous upside for. So there are certain times that I like Baker Mayfield. This week is not one of them. All right, on to your next guy. Who's up next on your list? We're talking about running backs now, correct?
Yeah, man, we're going into running backs, and we're starting it off with Ty Johnson for the New York Jets. It's only his second season. He was drafted by the Lions in 2019. Pretty speedy, 4.45, 40-yard dash, and with Gore going down this week against the Raiders, Johnson was ready to show what he has to offer for the future of the Jets franchise, and he did not disappoint. Rushing for 104 yards and 1 touchdown on 22 attempts. He also had 2 receptions for 13 yards. 19.7 fantasy points, guys. Can we ask for more out of a backup running back for the New York Jets? Now, assuming Gore doesn't come back from his concussion he sustained, Johnson will have all the opportunity to show up again versus the Seahawks that just got gashed by Wayne Gallman for 135 and gave up 2 touchdowns to the decrepit Alfred Morris. So what say you?
This is something that's where like this was one of my favorite stashes since he signed with the Jets. And I was expecting him to actually see an increased workload compared to what he saw. Frank Gore went down. Michael P. Ryan's had issues. And this guy's an explosive runner who is very raw coming out of college. So he's finally starting to come into his own. My concern with this, right, is this past game was something completely from like head to toe uncharacteristic of the Seattle Seahawks. This is not something that they normally do. They're not as inefficient on offense. They're not as inefficient in the run game, especially, and they just shit the bed. It's something as to where outside of the Vikings in week 5, they haven't given up over 100 yards to an entire team, much less a single running back, but an entire team on the ground. Good news is that you can get a little bit of production in the air up against the Seahawks, but it still makes me nervous when you're trying to chase those points and trying to see his almost essential like maximum upside. Like, I don't know if he has much more upside than what he put up this past week. Now, I still like him as a dynasty stash, and I still like him as a back of the end roster. But for me this week, at best, he's a back on my roster like flex option. So, I mean, if you're desperate, go for him. But I'm not sitting there thinking that he's going to do anything up against Seattle this week.
No, and I think every time we talk about any Jets player, I say the same thing. Adam Gase is still the coach. I mean, and that just scares me. It just scares me, especially with the way he's managed running backs. It just scares me. I love him next year as long as they do fire Gase, which now I'm a little curious as to whether they're going to or not. But if Gase isn't around, like you said, Chase, dynasty stash, I just don't trust him the rest of this season.
Well, I mean, why would they sit there and drop Gase? Or why would they fire Gase when, Greg Williams was 100% of the problem? The one play, like Greg Williams was all the problem. And now they got Greg Williams out of town. So Adam Gase can finally succeed,
I'm telling you, Gates has got to have something on the Johnson family. Like, has to. Like, dirty pictures or a video or something, man.
Dirty pictures? What, was he playing in the mud with them? I don't get it. I don't understand what you're saying.
I wasn't talking about Odell Beckham.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Shots fired.
We're still talking about Adam Gase.
Great play. Great play. Hey, mad respect for that joke. All right. So this user has Taysom Hill and Big Ben. Should they pick up like Derek Carr for the playoffs? Because Derek Carr has been on a hot streak. And although he's let me down multiple times now, I still find myself going towards Derek Carr. Should they save that roster spot?
I like Carr.
Yeah, I'd go with Carr, definitely. Taysom Hill, his time is ticking down. As soon as Breeze comes back, you can have him maybe for week 14. You really can't trust him after that. He goes back to his normal usage in the tight end, wide receiver, running back set. So he'll be third, fourth in the pecking order.
All right, so let's go ahead and hop on to our next running back over here. We've got Brian Hill. What do you think about Brian Hill, Chef?
I know he's not the best ad on this list, and maybe opportunity knocks though for Hill. Ito Smith sustained a head injury versus the Saints, and we all know Gurley isn't 100%. So the Falcons face the Chargers in week 14, and they're 18th against the running back, allowing 18.5 fantasy points. They just allowed Damian Harris to run for 80 yards on 16 carries. Not saying that Brian Hill is anything close to Damian Harris.
That's what it sounds like you're saying.
No, don't give me that. No. But I really think that if you are in a pinch, and listen, it just goes to show if we're researching and digging these guys up, no one else is available for the running back position. And you should have listened earlier preseason when we said go running back heavy, because this is why.
Yeah.
This is
you
why.
You shouldn't have to be worrying about an RB2 during the playoff push. You're not. You shouldn't. But here we are. Things happen. Antonio Gibson went out, and we'll get to that one in a minute. But yeah, go ahead.
This is the way. This is the way. But this is not the way, because Brian Hill is not the option this week. Sorry to shit on you. But no, I mean, to be honest with you, it's just something as to where, like, I know we're searching for guys, and this is an ongoing issue for me with people in these waivers. It's like people got to throw these names out and just hope that something sticks. And I get 100% like you're trying to find people that might need somebody. But at what level do you feel actually comfortable playing Hill? I mean, Morris already came out, right, and said that he expects Gurley to get his normal workload next week. And Hill, meanwhile, has seen a 60% snap share of what Gurley's actually seen over the first 2 weeks of the season, with Gurley somewhat healthy. So for me to sit there and look at Brian Hill as an option when he hasn't reached double-digit fantasy points in any week but one, while Gurley should see an increased workload, that's just not a lot of confidence, even with Ito Smith going out. I mean, Ito Smith barely played a role throughout the beginning of the season. Brian Hill, once again, still only was relevant for 1 week. So, I mean, for me, like, I wouldn't be shocked to see Brian Hill maybe get in the end zone on one play, but he's going to have a touchdown in order to actually be fantasy relevant, and I don't see that happening. I don't. I mean, Gurley's playing on third downs. He's getting some of the passing work, and I just don't see where Brian Hill, outside of maybe one explosive run, could actually achieve double-digit fantasy points and save you from being eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like I read somebody write about Brian Hill at least once a week. Like, grab this guy on waivers, here's why. And I bought into it a couple times, got really burned on it. And he's had opportunities and he hasn't done much with them. And I can't get on board with this one, Chef.
Yeah, this is something that's where, like, I thought that Brian Hill would be relevant in the week where Gurley got hurt. And I said, pick him up and put him on your bench. Make sure he performs, because last year the same exact thing happened to us with Brian Hill, where he had the first performance, bombed on us, and then the second performance he went off. I believe that was it. It might have been the other way around, but he's never a consistent guy. He's always going to be a throw in the dark, a complete dart throw to that sense. And it's not somebody that trusts playing in your playoffs, guys. Like, that's not the guy to go after. All right, Chef, who's your next guy?
Oh, man. Well, if you guys didn't like that one, you may not like this one much. For those of you that are watching or listening right now, the Turf Monster got a good one last night in Antonio Gibson. We don't know the full extent of that injury. And while J.D. McKissick will most likely see the significant uptick in usage, I'm going to put Peyton Barber out here on the waiver wire pickup list. Barber will most likely see the in between the tackles work and most likely be the goal line back. It's not a great matchup against the 49ers this week, who are still inside the top 10 versus running back. But like I said, if you are digging or if you are scraping the barrel, if you made it into the playoffs with Antonio Gibson finishing up your week, and now you have no Antonio Gibson going forward, and there's nothing available, Peyton Barber will fill maybe a quarter of that void left by Antonio Gibson.
Once again, I think that you probably have a better waiver option on your bench, an option for flex on your bench. The majority of people that actually made it to their playoffs probably didn't do it on the back of Antonio Gibson. I mean, they might have had him on the roster from time to time, but he had 4 or 5 weeks total this entire season, mainly towards the tail end of this, where he was actually somebody that, won you weeks or whatever the case was. Maybe not even that many. So if you have somebody like Antonio Gibson who you're playing, hopefully you kept whoever actually got you in the position to win towards the tail end of the season. because honestly, Peyton Barber should not be it. The 49ers, very tough up against the run. We saw it last night if you guys were watching the game last night, but we've seen it throughout the season, even, while dealing with a ton of injuries. So although the 49ers do have, some glimpses of failure when it comes to stopping the running back, there's no way that I could see Peyton Barber actually being relevant once again without getting a touchdown. Now, he is the goal line back, which makes me feel a little bit better. But as we saw last night, it's not guaranteed. If you have the ball on the 1 yard line, it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to punch it in the end zone. We saw it last night.
Yeah. I mean, in 2020, we're talking about Peyton Barber as a waiver wire ad in the playoffs. So, I mean, that's where we're at. It's the season it's been. I mean, he's somebody, if you're looking at your waiver wire, you're desperate for a running back and he's the guy there, I mean, take him. But like you said, Chase, you more than likely have a better option on your bench.
I like this next guy way more than you have, man. Who's this next guy? Go ahead and shout out his name.
The one and the only Adrian Peterson. And the reason why I have him out there is because we don't know what's going on with Swift. He went out with a concussion, and then he came back with an illness. Did not play this week, obviously. Now he's been out for a couple weeks. And you have to hold on to Peterson as that handcuff to Swift now. It's almost definite with the production that he's had over the past 2 weeks with Swift being out.
Yeah, this is not something I want to elaborate too much on when it comes to what's going on with Swift, but let's just say he had his bell rung. And a lot of people in the fantasy community aren't going to touch it because we know the sensitivity towards that. So, I mean, when you get your bell rung, and you have Swift in these lineups, I need to see Swift practicing. I need to see him on the right track. I need to see him ready to rock and roll. And I've been looking up stuff. I haven't found a single thing on Swift, positive note-wise, at least towards the weekend. So even the beat reporters are staying away from it from what I've seen. Something might have came out, while I was doing this report, but yeah, it's it's not something you want to see from your starting running back. Meanwhile, Adrian Peterson up against Green Bay had a little bit of a tough matchup, or struggled a little bit to an extent in week, 2, but they were also putting out carry on. They're putting out Swift. Now he pretty much has the running side of the backfield to himself. Meanwhile, Kerryon Johnson is catching passes. So Adrian Peterson, who is the goal line back over there, I like his chances of getting the end zone against Green Bay far more than I like either Peyton Barber or who was the other guy, Brian Hill.
Yeah, same.
I can get on board with that. Yep.
So let's talk about Cam Akers, right? Because you mentioned Cam Akers. Is he on your list?
He's not on the official list. He was there last week. And the reason why I just want to bring him up in passing is I don't like him this week per se, especially up against New England, but he's only 35.8% owned. And he was on our list last week and now has 3 games in a row with a touchdown. More importantly, he saw 21 carries to Darrell Henderson's 3 in week 13. And I believe he is going to keep that progression going with the carries department.
You want to take this, Nate, and then I'll close it out?
Yeah, I can see that. I still get nervous about that backfield, at least the rest of this season, because you just don't know what McVay's going to do. And it's been great to see Akers the last 3 weeks get more production, but then they could just air the ball out this week, and Akers could have 2 touches.
So I'm not even concerned about the passing aspect of things. Like, Henderson sat there, and although he, wavered in touches compared to Akers, Henderson still almost outproduced him. We sat there, we looked at Cam Akers. He had a pedestrian subpar 3.5 yards per carry, and he's not even getting looks in the passing game. I think the most amount of targets he's seen so far this year, from what I was looking up, was 1. So he's not getting the usage in the passing game. And I could be wrong on that if somebody wants to look that up and correct me. But no, he's not catch a
pass. He did catch a pass last week for a touchdown.
Yeah, but he's just not getting a ton of work in the passing game. Right. So, without that volume, I don't want to rely on one passing attempt. That's like relying on Jakuzik every single week, But did I say that right? I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, back to it. We're sitting there. We saw Henderson actually get hurt in the second quarter. He came out. Akers came in and pretty much took over the workload. Prior to that, they were about even in their snap percentages. So it's something that's where, do I hate Cam Akers? No. He was my RB4 and my actual 104 for rookie picks prior to the draft for Dynasty. But I'm not going to have him higher up on my acquisitions unless I have Henderson or unless I have Malcolm Brown, because it's something as to where, like, I don't know who's actually going to play. We could see Henderson go out, and all of a sudden Cam Akers gets a bump on his knee, and now Henderson's dominating the touches. And for you to sit there and rely on somebody like that for your fantasy playoffs, like, I'd rather, like, not sit there and try to force guys like that into my lineup. Now, if you're desperate, once again, as a late flex, sure. But there are so many guys that I've higher up on my rankings this week that I'd rather play other than Akers. So I'm fading him. But can I bring up real quick Rashard Penny? Rashad Penny. Like, he's practicing
You
this.
can try.
He's practicing, right? We have Chris Carson who's banged up. We've got Carlos Hyde who's banged up. And this guy could actually be in line potentially for some late season work. Now, do I love that pick? No, but if I have Chris Carson, if I have Carlos Hyde, I'm grabbing Rashad Penny and I'm stashing him on my benches. They are trying to take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hand to an extent. And although the defense has been a little bit less efficient over the past couple weeks, like, I think that they're going to get back to this running game, which could have Rashad Penny in for a low-end RB2 type role. Is he a stash for you guys at all? Like, do you want to have him on your roster if you have Chris Carson? Do you want to have him on your roster if you have Carlos Hyde?
I guess, yeah. I mean, if you are that Chris Carson owner or that Carlos Hyde owner, maybe if you're the Carlos Hyde owner, you might want DJ Dallas if that was the case. But Rashad Penny, yeah, he was a big bruiser, right? He run through the tackles, and yeah, it was pronounced Juszczyk.
Yeah, I knew that too. Yeah, that's the worst part.
I wasn't going to cut you off, but
you should have.
Yeah,
I
think you could put out a flyer on him, and it just, like you said, a stash at the end of your bench. If you're in that spot where you have that bench space, I mean, if you have Carson, you most likely have Carlos Hyde and possibly DJ Dallas. I don't think holding all four running backs for that backfield, unless you are in a 32 player league, that might not be the best option for you.
I'd stash him if I have Hyde, if I have Carson, but otherwise I don't think I'd touch him this season.
What if you're trying to cock block an opponent?
Well, in that case, I might do it. Like, if I'm out of the playoff and trying to keep somebody from having that stash back, yeah, I'd do it.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into these wide reshevers. Wide receivers. Who do you have over there for your first one?
Well, the first one on the list is T.Y. Hilton. Hilton, 47% ownership, so he may or may not be available for you, but he should be a top priority in your league if he is available. I would spend up for T.Y. Hilton, considering the way he's been producing. Hilton looked like his old self last week, 8 for 110 and a touchdown on 11 targets. Granted, this is only the second time this season Hilton has seen 10 plus targets, but it doesn't negate the fact that he has finally built chemistry with Phillip Rivers. With Vegas and Houston on the schedule, look for Hilton to stay thirsty for those targets and hopefully have a similar output going forward.
I don't know what to expect anymore. I'm about to throw my papers up in the air because Hilton's pissing me off so bad this season. I didn't have Hilton as like a top end option or anything along those lines, earlier in the season. But it was somebody that I was still drafting like the 5th, 6th round, maybe even 7th if he fell down to me that late. I thought that Hilton would have a decent type, season, especially with the lack of wide receivers that they had over there. It wasn't the lack of opportunity he had. It wasn't the lack of snaps that he had. It wasn't the lack of anything that he had, because he was still on the field. But it was like he was invisible. He was invisible to Phillip Rivers. Now that he hasn't been invisible over the past, 4 weeks now, almost 5, 6, it's arguable. He's been doing slightly better, but the thing is now he's seeing more red zone targets consistently. Each of the past 3 weeks, he's seen at least one red zone target. 2 weeks ago, he saw one inside the 5. It's something as to where I like his usage. I'm willing to pick him up, and I'm definitely going to be playing him up against Las Vegas and Houston, but I'm pretty much going to make sure I have somebody else on my bench ready to go up against Pittsburgh. Nate?
I hate everything about this.
I wanted
it to be Michael Pittman, man, but you're not wrong. Phillip Rivers seems to have remembered that, hey, T.Y. Hilton's on my team. I can use him. Hey. And if that's going to happen, I mean, I'd probably be willing to grab him at this point. I'm not real super wide receiver needy, but if I was, I would. I mean, the usage is there. Rivers is seeing him. Obviously, I'd even say if you're a guy who's got Michael Pittman, maybe you grab T.Y. Hilton as well if he's available.
So real quick, I do want to address this before we move on to the next guy. We actually have a show coming up tonight at 8 o'clock where we have our injury expert coming on, Steffi, of course. So make sure you guys check this out. Go to youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Make sure you guys hit subscribe and come check us out at 8 o'clock tonight. We will have our injury expert on to talk about all the injuries from week 13 and how they're going to affect week 14. Or you can just follow us in the group. All right. And then, like Axel over there saying, you can thank Michael Pittman Jr. for opening up T.Y. Hilton's targets. And I think that's a big part because after that breakout week, like it's opened up, this I guess, double team that we've been looking at from T.Y. Hilton. I mean, he has faced a lot of double teams. He's not having to deal with that near as much. I was sitting there looking at the coverage reports, and he was like, I mean, literally single coverage on normally the secondary cornerback almost every single time. So it's either they're moving him into that area or Michael Pittman is actually opening up. I haven't seen many double teams on him, but the primary corner is actually covering Michael Pittman Jr. on the majority of these plays now. All right, so let's go on to the next guy, right? We covered everything with TY, right? Anything else?
Yeah, no. Yeah. We got TY in the bag there.
And let's go to one of my favorite dudes. I'm going to introduce him because I've been talking about him all off season. I wrote report after report after report on him.
He made it.
He made it. There were guys like Joe Reed that just didn't make it. Joe Reed didn't make it, but Colin Johnson, baby, did. Colin Johnson's ownership at 0.4%, right, means that he's available in every league. And Colin Johnson is going to be that starting receiver over there for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2021. What they're going to be doing over the next few weeks is they're going to make sure that he's involved in this offense to make sure they don't have to draft another guy or invest in another guy. Meanwhile, we should see some combination of Keelan Cole, DJ Chark, and Laviska Shenault over the remaining schedule. But Keelan Cole, he's out. He's on his final year of his contract. And then, of course, they have Chris Conley. He's out. He's on the final year of his contract. So they got to see what they have over there. And I think Colin Johnson is actually the real deal. Not only is a red zone threat, but he's also a deep threat who can catch these balls. Very similar to how, Mike Williams can jump up and go get it. Well, Colin Johnson just reaches up and goes get it because the dude is like 7'2". Right. So go ahead and tell us what you're feeling over there, Chef.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it, Chase. He's built a rapport with Glennon and connecting for 4 receptions each of his last 2 games. Even with Chark back on the field this week, we saw 6 targets go Johnson's way and now has back-to-back weeks with double-digit fantasy points. He looks like the real deal. I mean, if he can keep this production up, he's definitely on the fantasy roster for the end of the season as a late low flex play. And then for 2021 and for Dynasty, if you have a spot, if you have a taxi spot, throw him in your taxi slot and see how he can develop for you going into the 2021 season.
I love Colin Johnson a lot. I just did a breakdown on him, and man, that dude can ball. He can just ball. And I think you're right, Chase. They've got to see what they have in him to make sure that he's NFL ready, which I think he's proven the last few weeks he is. We're starting to see more targets. He's definitely a good low-end flex, and he's out there. So there's no reason to not go grab him. None at all.
Yeah, it's game over. And he has, by the way, this upcoming week, who they face. I think they have the Titans, correct? I imagine that. The Titans this upcoming week?
I think so.
I believe
Either way,
so.
They tried to get him involved in the red zone back over there in week 2. He only saw 11 snaps, but he had 3 targets on 11 snaps, guys. 3 targets on 11 snaps. They're inaccurate passes over there by Gardner Minshew. So I'm expecting it only to get better, and I think that Johnson is going to have himself a game again this week. I'm picking him up, and I'm actually playing him in a few leagues where I need that back-end option.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, who's up there for you next?
Oh, well, this is another guy that you had mentioned last week, Kiki QT for the Houston Texans. Now, I knew he would be utilized going into this last week's game, but I didn't know how much. And wow, 8 for 141. No one saw all that coming. And if you did, what's this week's Mega Millions number? I want to buy a ticket because It's just insane the amount of targets that Kiki Cutie just got. But he does get a tough matchup versus the Bears in week 14. But week 15 and 16 look for him to be putting up some similar production versus the Colts and the Bengals going forward.
Yeah, it's a good one. And both Kuti and of course, you're seeing up on the screen, Axel mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones. Both those guys were very high up on my list as guys to buy into last week. Prior to all this going down, Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to be in there because Kadiril Hodge was hurt, and that's their deep guy that they look at when he has these opportunities. And guess what? He makes it happen every chance that he gets. So Donovan Peoples-Jones was a pickup, and Kuti you should have picked up last week. But moving forward, Kiki Kuti's always been a guy that actually sees a decent amount of production. Like every time he gets an opportunity to an extent, not every single time, but most time where he gets an opportunity, he does really, really well with it. And it's something as to where like he has issues staying healthy. He has issues on special teams, causing the coach staff not to absolutely love him. But he is what everybody was hoping Steven Sims Jr. was going to be. And that's a more effective slot receiver who can also play on the outside and get some of those deeper targets. He reminds me if like Michael Gallup met up with a Steven Sims and they had a baby, although I think he might be older than both of them, or at least the same age. So it's something as to where like he's kind of that hybrid type player that can go inside or outside. Kiki Kuti needs some time, man. And the Texans were never going to cut him. He was never on the roster bubble, regardless of what the reports said, because he just needs time to develop. We've seen those flashes, and now that he's coming into his own, like he should have already been owned in dynasty leagues, and moving forward, he needs to be owned in redraft as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
We talked about him last week. Should have listened to us then.
Yep. Big time. I think that was my top ad last week.
It was.
All right. Who you got next?
Well, it's Denzel Mims, the only Jet you really can trust, and one of my favorite rookie wide receivers. And he was on this list last week, and unfortunately, he did see a little downtick in targets week 3, but that's his floor. I mean, not in week 3. I'm sorry, this past week with 3. But that's his floor. He's the perfect guy to have on your roster in weeks 14 and 16 when the Jets play Seattle and Cleveland. We're still seeing that relationship with him and Darnold start to build more, and look for him to do better going down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's something as the next 2 or 3 matchups are just sick. And as they sit there, especially in this next one where they're going to try and stop Rashad Perryman, they're going to try and cut off Jamison Crowder. I think that Mims could actually have his best game of the season this upcoming week.
Again, guy we've talked about before, you should have had already.
All right.
Yeah, that makes it easy, right, guys?
I mean, we keep talking about it, guys. We're shouting about it, but not everybody can tune in for every single episode. So,
right.
I do put out like 8 to 10 a week. So it's kind of tough for everybody to keep up with them. But yeah, we were shouting about it last week. Another guy that we were shouting about is going to be up next on the list, Darnell Mooney.
He was not on the list last week. He was not on the list last week. And this week he is a great find, only 9.4% owned in ESPN leagues. And he's going up against Houston. And I myself have been picking wide receivers going up against most likely Vernon Hargreaves. You can pick on him a lot. We saw T.Y. Hilton destroy him last week. And even the switch back to Trubisky, Mooney still has upheld the majority of his targets and should be a reliable, deeper flex ad for your playoff run that you can hold on to and spot play if you get caught in a bind.
Yeah, I think I actually forgot to bring up Mitch Trubisky earlier in the show, and I did want to highlight him as a potential flex play, which is scary.
It's scary.
But it's something as to where, like, hey, if you're desperate or if you're in 2 quarterback leagues or you want to go all in on something, Trubisky actually has probably the best matchups of anybody left on the slate for the quarterback position. Houston, Minnesota, Jacksonville. They're going to sell out probably with Houston trying to stop Monty because Monty has been going off over the past couple weeks. Meanwhile, Minnesota's defense, their run defense, has gotten 10 times better than what it was in the beginning of the season. And it's something as to where, like, up against Jacksonville, if he catches fire over the next 2 games, Trubisky has these weird weeks where he actually goes off and he does weird things. Like, he's a weird dude. And this could be one of those weird things that he does where he absolutely goes off. And that could actually involve, of course, drum and roll. Oh, my thing just fell down. It could involve Darnell Mooney. So Darnell Mooney with these next matchups, they should be absolutely insane. And he's seen 15 targets over the last 2 games. I think that could end up, I guess that could end up holding strong. My biggest thing that stood out, though, was he's 23rd in yards of separation per target, and he's 5th in both unrealized air yards and deep targets combined. So I love it, man. I just need him to connect. I need him to have that vibe, that feel. So I like Darnell Mooney. I think that he's a great play, and he's somebody that I want on my benches. Even if I don't start him this week, even if I put him on the back end of my roster, I still want him on my roster.
I've loved Mooney. I just hated his quarterback situation all year. Like, you see him get wide open, and then you see there's 10 yards separation between him and where Foles is throwing the ball or where Trubisky's throwing it. But it's gotten better with Trubisky, and I have a lot of hope for him these last 3 games of the fantasy season. I've had him rostered already, but he's a guy, I mean, if he's out there, yes, 100%. And maybe you don't play him this week. But those 3 matchups are beautiful for him. And if Trubisky takes off and you have that stack, I mean, how big could that be for you in the playoffs? If you need a quarterback and you need a wide receiver, I mean, it's risky, but this is the playoffs.
I cannot wait for my DFS slates to go off because guess what? I'm going to have a bunch of Mooney, and I'm going to have a good amount of Trubisky as well, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I know that's scary. I know it's weird. I know we probably just lost every single listener, but I'm telling you guys, like, it's not something. I don't love Trubisky. I'm not a fan of Trubisky, but it's just like the perfect storm of things happening right now. All right, let's talk about Michael Pittman, right? Because Michael Pittman was mentioned earlier, but we might as well revisit him since he's still only 42.5% owned.
Yeah, it seems like the fantasy community is finally starting to pick up on Michael Pittman, and they should be. He's a fantasy winner in my book. Even at his floor, he secured all 5 of his targets for 46 yards this past week. If he would gotten into the end zone, I mean, you're talking about a 15.6 fantasy point day versus Houston, and that would have been great, and everybody would have been rushing to the waiver wire to pick him. But now they have T.Y. Hilton. So if they go after T.Y. Hilton and you're not able to get T.Y. Hilton, get Michael Pittman. Make sure he's on your rosters going forward with Vegas and Houston again on the schedule.
Yeah, I can roll with that 100%. I mean, Michael Pittman was somebody that I've been very, very high on. And all of a sudden he broke out and he garnered all this attention. And, as Axel brought up, it's like, damn it, like he's getting all this primary coverage. But the thing is like he's 29th in the NFL when it comes to yak so far this season, yards after the catch. And he's only played like 5 or 6 games. So, the one game was terrible with the targets where he saw 9 targets and they just couldn't hit him. Meanwhile, all these other targets are his hitches and his comebacks where, he's getting open, but where's the yak? Like, keep giving him opportunities for this yards after the catch. He's gotten credited with 3 drops, but those 3 drops were BS. They were during that 9-target game where they weren't accurate passes. So I'm sitting there and I'm going to look for a big week from him moving forward. I still want him on my rosters. I'm not dropping him. He's led the team in snaps each of the past 4 weeks. And honestly, I think that he's going to see 8 targets a game for the remainder of the season. With the Raiders and the Texans over the next 2 games, I'm picking him up and possibly playing him depending on your need as a flexed option.
Yeah, and I think with Vegas and Houston coming up, there's an opportunity for him and Hilton to both go off. I mean, it could be both. It wouldn't surprise me.
I like that.
All right.
Let's
go over your last receiver. Let's go over your last receiver and then hop on to tight ends.
Yeah, my last receiver on the list is Gabriel Davis, only 4.5% ownership in ESPN formats. He's more of a boom or bust candidate, but nonetheless should be rostered in all formats with John Brown out for at least the next 2 weeks. He has now gone back-to-back weeks with 3 receptions on 4 targets for 68 or more yards and a touchdown. So continue to see similar production in the next 3 matchups. Even against tough defenses in Pittsburgh, Denver, and New England. The news coming out today that Denver just lost A.J. Boye, and we saw what Cam Sims did to Pittsburgh. So I have faith in Gabriel Davis for the next couple weeks.
Man, Josh Allen's just out there slinging it too. Slinging it. And I think there's enough to go around between Diggs, Beasley, and Davis. With John Brown out, I mean, I like Gabe Davis a lot. I mean, he's not my wide receiver 1 for sure, but he's a guy I'll flex to. I have no problem with that at all.
He's somebody, dude, I like him. I've been chasing him all year, but I keep on picking the wrong freaking weeks. So it hasn't really worked out for me in DFS plays or anything like that. But either way, he's still out there. He's performing. He's putting together good stats, but I think he's very matchup dependent. All right, on to your tight ends. Who you got for your tight ends?
My first tight end is Dalton Schultz, and I'm going to reference FF One of a Kind from breaking down the numbers with you on Thursdays. And he said to me this week about Gesicki, he said, I don't care what he's done lately. He's playing the Bengals, and the Bengals are the third worst team versus the tight end and are giving up 10.5 fantasy points per game on average. It's Dalton Schultz. You need Schultz to be on your roster this week, and you can stream him right into your roster, your starting roster. Schultz has seen 5+ targets in each of the last 4 games, and I believe it continues into the fantasy playoffs, especially against Cincinnati.
Yeah, up against Cincinnati, I'll take it. I mean, this is very similar to the point that I hopped on to Logan Thomas, and with him seeing 4+ targets a game, you have a guaranteed floor, and from the tight end position, that's not very easy to find. Meanwhile, he has the upside because he faces Cincinnati. So you're getting like a double whammy here. You're going to see 4 targets, and he has the upside to score a touchdown and see more opportunities. Yeah, I like it. I'll take it.
Yep, same here.
All right, your last tight end.
And it's the one you called last week to be a sleeper there, Chase. Jordan Reed. If you listened last week, he got you 3 for 32 and a touchdown versus Buffalo last night. He's like most tight end 2s that need a touchdown to make you feel good. But what we saw how Pittsburgh utilized Ebron last night, and if the 49ers play a little bit of copycat with that, we could see another fantasy viable day for Jordan Reed. And I think you can stick with them if need be.
Yep, 2 weeks in a row, Jordan Reed, baby. That was my big sleeper. I still think he's going to end up performing. This upcoming matchup, it's not too difficult of a call for me. I'm going to ride this one till it breaks, which, by the way, we don't really know when it happens. But you can't run on Washington. We saw them struggle with Pittsburgh and a bunch of other teams. They shut down the wide receivers for the most part underneath. You can attack them deep, right? You can hit the wide receivers deep, or you can attack the tight end. So just like we saw with Eric Ebron, who had like 3 or 4 drops this past game with the Steelers versus Washington, Jordan Reed doesn't drop those balls. So you're going to get that production plus the production that Ebron already offered. I'm going to ride Jordan Reed, like I said, up until he breaks down, which, by the way, guess what, guys? Guess what?
What?
It's a revenge game, baby. It's a revenge game.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. I was waiting for you to finish. Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
It is
you
a
guys
revenge game.
Put that in the notes?
No, it's not in the notes.
Right. I was like, damn, did I just steal your thunder? No, but it's a revenge game, of course. Nate, how you feeling about Jordan Reed?
I've loved him all season. Like you said, ride him until he breaks down, man. Jordan Reed he's won me a couple matchups. I like the guy. He's solid. Yeah.
Dude, smash play for me. Love it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you guys go check out Trophy Smack and use promo code CIRCLE. Once again, that's Trophy Smack. Use promo code CIRCLE while going to checkout. You'll actually get a free ring. It's worth like $59.99, $60, free ring. Anyways, guys, appreciate y'all's time. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you guys for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.